We're in a difficult situation, and that means we have a tough decision to make. Yes, it's important we do what's best for humanity. Absolutely. It's important we keep emotion out of it, and we make a rational decision. With that in mind, I think the choice is clear. Crystal clear, sir. We have to save Armin. What? What? Armin is the leader! Yeah, but Armin is my favorite character. Armin has a level of experience that can't be replaced. Yeah, but Armin is my favorite character. Armin orchestrated this peaceful transition of power that made all this possible. Yeah, but Armin is my favorite character. Isn't that right, Wackus Bumpus? Yeah, of course we'll save Armin. But never forget, Armin took 3 cores and turned them into 1 army. Ooh, that's bad even for me. Before we get started, just a reminder, I have a Patreon now, and there's a link in the video description. Maybe if you're in a position to help the channel grow, you'll go check that out. And if you're already a Patreon supporter, you rock. Thank you. So I've got to just say that this is a wonderful pair of episodes, and they start with Zeke talking about the tragedy of lost history. He kind of remarks on the philosophy that those who don't know their own history are doomed to repeat it, but he expresses pity for the recruits because they don't have any choice in the matter about not knowing their history. Their mind was erased. And he pities these troops that are charging at him, and he calls it a tragedy that King Rice stole their memories of the whole world because it's causing them to repeat some mistakes they've made in the past. I'm kind of curious to find out eventually how many times this cycle is played out, because I think this isn't the first go-round, particularly based on what Zeke is saying here. But in fact, Zeke gets so frustrated that the Beast Titan actually crushes the stones in his hands into like dust or sand so he can't really throw them. And I think this is an important moment because it gives us some insight into Zeke and into Zeke's motivations. And I think this is necessary because by the show structure, we see most of the story through the cadets' point of view and through the Survey Corps, the scouts' point of view. And moments like these are real important to remind us that this is a complex situation. There isn't necessarily a side that's right or a side that's wrong, but there's just different points of view. And the show's drawn our attention to that several times by the statements of people within the Survey Corps. And I've got to say, I'm as guilty as anyone of having been trained to root for the good guys and against the bad guys. And I really like how this show lulls me into like one rigid point of view, and then it challenges me on it. It challenges the way I approach fiction and life and stories in general. And I think that is the primary element of this story that really sets the show apart for me from like other shows I've seen in the past. Honestly, personally for me, I'd put this show on par with Verhoeven's Starship Troopers. The way that both of those things get me to respond in a certain way, then later I reflect on it and I actually feel remorse for my response in the moment. And I'll definitely have a lot to say about that later. But despite his pity, the Beast Titan just goes ahead and he mows down the people that are charging him because he's got a job to do. And Marlowe, my favorite haircut in the show, Marlowe, he has a moment when he's charging into what looks like certain death. I mean, he ends up getting hit in the head with the stone, so who knows? And his final thought is about Hitch. Then Marlowe wonders why is he thinking about her at a time like this? And I tell you, I think that haircut is killing the poor boy's brain cells because he doesn't even realize that he's smitten with that kitten. So I'm hoping that if Marlowe lives, and there's no indication so far whether or not he will, like I said, it looks like he got killed. But if he does live, I hope that he realizes what matters to him and he rides off to tell Hitch how he feels. I mean, she seems to care about him from what we've seen in the past. And if she can accept his bowl cut, well then she's a real special lady, Marlowe. But Zeke isn't the only one with business to take care of here, because Levi's on a mission too, and he does his mission pretty darn well. Levi handles the Beast Titan with cold efficiency, but he lets Zeke live. He spirals down the Beast Titan's arm, and he really tears him to shreds, cuts his legs, gets him down on the ground fairly easily, I've got to say, and he takes Zeke out of the nape. And he even shoves a blade into his hard palate, and he causes an injury to the point that Zeke can't transform again anytime soon. But he leaves him alive. And Levi made a promise to Armin. He promised to kill the Beast Titan. So why did he let him live here? The logical answer is that he wanted to extract useful information from him, maybe learn things that would have a lot of strategic and tactical value. But there's also the possibility of simple curiosity. I mean, it was curiosity that turned to outright obsession that motivated Armin and his own battle against the Titans. And maybe Levi's getting tired of killing. I mean, a person's got a right to get tired of killing, I would say. I think it's possible. So there is a potential debate to be had about whether Levi's decision to let Zeke live was emotional or logical. Maybe he's already trying to secure a shifter to feed to Armin, like something I'll argue is more emotional than logical. And believe me, there's a lot of emotion versus logic debate to be had in this pair of episodes. And you can have that debate with the characters as well as you can have it with me as a viewer. But that duck-faced Titan is really frustrating though. Like, it's big, but it's sneaky. It just pops out of nowhere and snatches Zeke away from Levi like that evil duck at the park that stole my sandwich that one time. And the duck-faced Titan does that more than once in these episodes. Like, how in the heck is a giant that runs around on all fours so good at sneaking up on people? And people are telling me it's not called the duck-faced Titan, it's called the cart Titan. The cart Titan? Really? Are you telling me you look at that thing and the first thing you notice is the cart? I mean, you could probably take the cart off of its back, but there's no taking that duck off of its face, is there? I think I'm going to stick with duck-faced Titan. Also, do you think there's any chance that the duck-faced Titan is Armin's mom? Now, the cadets have a pretty good plan to take out the armored Titan. Connie's gonna Thunder Spear attack one temporomandibular joint while Sasha gets the other, and while he's standing all slack-jawed, Mikasa's gonna shove a third Thunder Spear into its mouth and out the back of its head. And when they begin this plan, Connie's Thunder Spear strikes home, but Sasha's misses the mark. This bugs me because Sasha is the group's archer. She should be the best at firing the Thunder Spear in my opinion. She's used to ranged attacks. Now, I know she was hit by debris and that caused her to miss, but from a narrative perspective, I wish Connie had missed if it was purely happenstance. And even though she was hit by debris and has a totally valid reason to miss, because she's the archer, in the back of my head, I'm going to wonder if she missed that shot on purpose now. She's like the Hawkeye of the group. She shouldn't miss. But even with the plan off course, Mikasa understands the importance of the task at hand, and she continues to charge at the armored Titan's mouth. I don't know what she plans to do, but I guess she's just going to improvise when she gets there. But it was the right choice, because it's here when Hanji makes her triumphant return. This made me so happy, because I was really concerned that Hanji might be gone. And I've just come around on this character so much from being distrustful of Hanji to outright loving that character at this point. I was thrilled when she showed back up. And Mikasa's lack of hesitation, well, it pays off because Hanji knows what to do and she gets the other side of that jaw in time for Mikasa to use her Thunder Spear as planned. But Mikasa does seem to catch part of that blast. So I was worried about the toll that blast might make on Mikasa here, but she seems to come out pretty well from it. But I absolutely love how this moment reinforces this developing theme of characters learning to rely on others, learning to get along and work as a unit instead of individuals, and how Mikasa just kind of had faith in the plan and the team and it worked out. Also, having Hanji back in the mix throws a little extra intrigue into what's going to happen a little bit later on. And Armin's plan to take out the Colossal Titan is a costly one, but I think it's pretty darn brilliant. And his plan really hinges on two things. The first is being able to stand his ground in this excruciating and deadly circumstance. And the second part of his plan is not letting Aaron know that Armin plans to die. He talks to Aaron about going to the sea, and more importantly, he asks Aaron, "Have I ever lied to you before?" That one kind of hurts when you see where it goes. But Armin really has to sell Aaron on the idea that he expects to live, because Aaron would never go along with any plan in which Armin plans to die. And my hat is off to Armin on just how well this plan works, but also the strength Armin has to take so much pain and so much punishment for the benefit of his plan. I just can't imagine holding on with all that heat and all that steam and the air so hot that you can't even breathe. And Armin takes the suffering and sticks to the plan, smoldering to death, being cooked alive until he actually goes up in flames. And what I really love is that in all this battle and this distraction, it's Aaron in his human form that takes out Bertolt and the Colossal Titan. Aaron leaves behind his Titan form, and it's his skill as a scout that gets Bertolt out of the nape. And I think there's a little bit of a symbolic statement here, almost like Armin helped Aaron reclaim his humanity, and then of course we'll see as things play out that Armin is going to lose his own in a way. And Armin, who said that if you're not willing to sacrifice something, you can't change anything, well, he seems to sacrifice everything here, and he does it with no regrets. I also like to compare Armin's suicidal plan to Ervin's suicidal plan, because they're both willing to give their lives to save Aaron and hopefully humanity. But Ervin tells Levi that he plans to die, where Armin is deceptive about it with Aaron. And I don't know if that says more about Armin and Ervin or Aaron and Levi. But we do see a flashback to when Armin and Aaron were very young, and Aaron asks Armin about these bullies that are always beating him up. And Armin says, if I don't run, I don't lose. And that just crushed me, because Armin's been training his whole life for this moment, standing up to the bullies and taking the punishment. He's been staring bigger people in the eye and taking abuse and standing his ground. And that broke me a little bit inside to think about it. Because that's exactly what he did to defeat the Colossal Titan. He didn't run, so he didn't lose. Some heavy stuff right there, folks. And episode 18 was absolutely solemn. There was no OP, there was mostly an absent score, very little music in the episode, and it was perfectly setting the tone for where the story has brought us in this moment. Zeke in his human form sees Aaron for the first time, and he makes some significant comments here. First off, Zeke says Aaron looks nothing like his father, which confirms that Zeke knows Grisha somehow. In some capacity, these two have met before. And I've assumed this for a while now, but it's nice to have it confirmed. But I didn't expect what came next, because Zeke says that he and Aaron were both victims of Grisha. And I really wasn't expecting any scenario where Zeke would perceive himself as a victim of Grisha. If anything, I would have thought that the Beast Titan was more of the boss on some kind of a mission that Grisha hoped to escape. And Zeke says Aaron was brainwashed by Grisha. And I don't know if I should believe Zeke, but now I do wonder what kind of sketchy stuff Grisha might have been up to. I can't wait to learn more about that. I also wonder now if we can trust whatever it is we'll find in Grisha's basement, if he's brainwashed Aaron or he's up to something sketchy. And the thing that probably stuck with me the most was when Zeke said, "I'll come back and save you from this." Because that statement just reminds me there's a whole other level to this story that I don't even understand yet. And it also serves as kind of a reminder that both sides have some version of noble intentions here, and I ought to be careful about cheering too hard one way or the other, but I end up doing it anyway. Also, Reiner's carrying a letter from Amir to Krista, or Historia. And that just reminds us that Reiner's capable of doing nice things, that he's not just a complete monster. There's a soldier in addition to the warrior here. And he takes his promise to save Krista seriously. Maybe he still wants to marry her. I don't know. It wouldn't be the first time a marriage alliance ended a war, would it? But as these two episodes unfold, what they really come down to me is that Levi has a choice to make here. He has Kenny's syringe, and we learn the plan was always to capture one of the Titan shifters and feed it to a transformed scout who is on the verge of death to save the scout and gain a shifter. And Ervin's instructions were basically for Levi to use his own judgment on who to give it to. Now, when Aaron sees signs of life in Armin's charred body, he immediately calls for Levi to inject Armin. And Levi seems on board. But he does kind of dawdle a little bit. And before he can shoot up Armin, Flock shows up with Ervin over his shoulder, and Ervin's barely alive. And this is where what I think is the biggest moment of this show so far in the first 3 seasons starts to unfold. And that is Levi must decide whether to give the serum to Armin or to Ervin. It's kind of like an Attack on Titan Sophie's Choice. And I think you might know what Sophie's Choice is. I don't know who knows what Sophie's Choice is and who doesn't. I'm older than a lot of people watching this video. But just in case you don't know, it's a movie that I've never watched, but there's a mom who has to decide which one of her 2 children gets to live and which one will be executed. So you can probably understand why I never wanted to watch that movie. But Levi and Aaron don't agree on who to save. Levi wants to save Ervin. Aaron wants to save Armin. It's pretty darn straightforward here. And then I see that this is what the fight that was teased at the end of episode 12 was all about. And I love it because it's something I totally never would have guessed is the reason for that fight. It's like the perfect tease in my opinion. It seems like it's spoiling something, but I just could not have anticipated what led to that fight. I was thinking so many different things, and I love it that it was able to tell me what happened and then totally surprise me when it happened. Perfection. Now I'm going to go ahead and disclose my bias here. Armin is my favorite character, so emotionally, I want Armin to live. But I also think Armin was the right choice from a logical perspective too. But I am biased and I can talk myself into almost anything. And Levi said that he felt Aaron was the better choice for humanity. But I think Levi was acting on emotion as much as Aaron. But unlike Aaron, Levi has years of experience suppressing expressions of his emotions. I don't know if he actually suppresses the emotions, but he has that cold poker face when he feels them. And Levi was kind of angling to give Aaron the injection for a while. I think that's why he didn't kill Zeke right away like he promised. I think it was an emotional decision that may have backfired, and it was because he wanted to save Aaron, at least in my interpretation of the events. And going all the way back to the battle for Trost, I've said that I see Armin as the future of the military leadership, and he's proven the value of his mind. Aaron himself said something to the effect of Armin's mind being the greatest weapon humanity has. And Aaron expressed my sentiments perfectly when he said that Armin was humanity's savior more than either Aaron or himself. And then we got Flock. Flock, the guy who carried Aaron back up there to the rooftop. His stated motivation was to some degree to punish Aaron, to not let him leave this mess he created. So not exactly the noblest of intentions there. Now Flock also said that it takes a devil to defeat the Titans, but I think he may be missing some nuance there. All in all, I would say Flock's motivations were more emotional than logical. And what about Hanji's motivations in the situation? She wants to save Aaron for his leadership, but without Aaron, guess who the leader is? Yeah, it's Hanji. And I love Hanji, but I can understand that in the moment she may be a little overwhelmed by the idea and responsibilities of being commander of the Scouts. Maybe she doesn't want to put that on her shoulders. Not to mention that she's probably received mentorship and guidance from Aaron over the years, and that would give her an emotional motivation to want to preserve him as well. So maybe Hanji's arguments weren't as rational as she may have thought in the moment. But for me, it's Kenny's argument that makes the choice clear. And I think they go a long way in influencing Levi as well. And it's sort of fitting, since the serum was a gift from Kenny, that his thoughts and words should be taken into consideration on how to use it. But Kenny had said that everyone's drunk on something. Everyone's chasing something. And that's what keeps people going. But what happens when they catch what they're chasing? You know, it's like this thing I heard growing up, a dog chasing a car. What's the dog going to do if it catches the car? And Aaron is on the verge of getting the proof that his father was right. So what happens to him then? Is he like Zachary, who just wants to spend the rest of his life shoving funnels into noble bottoms? Or is he like Shaddis and he just goes off to train new recruits and quits contributing to the war effort in a direct fashion? I think Aaron's drink of choice is about to run out here. But what about Armin? What's he drunk on? What's he chasing? Well, he wants to make it to the sea, and he's got a whole lot of business to take care of before he can slap on his Speedo and play some beach volleyball. What Armin wants would involve freeing humanity from behind the walls. And I think Aaron realizes his chase is close to finished, and that's why he maybe refuses the serum. At least he swings his arm away when Levi looks like he's going to inject it. And there might be more than one way to interpret swinging his arm away. It might just be that he's flailing a bit in this near-death delirium, not really aware of what's going on. You know, it seems like he thinks he's back in school, raising his hand to ask the teacher a question. But to me, it looked like a refusal. And more importantly, Levi saw it as a refusal, or at least an indicator, because he gives the serum to Armin. And I think he made the right choice, but not everyone agrees. Levi does say something important here, though. He says he finally sets Aaron free, that he's letting him rest instead of pulling him back into this HE double hockey sticks of a war, this place that they live. And this kind of reminds me of an arc on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series. Buffy dies and all her friends swear to bring her back, to resurrect her. Then we see that Buffy is in like this paradise in the afterlife. She's finally at peace, no worries, no fears, no problems, and her friends rip her out of that nirvana and bring her back to Sunnydale, which just might be the worst place in the universe. So I'm glad Levi didn't do that to Aaron. But we can't leave Armin in Titan form, so he has to be fed a shifter, and the only shifter on hand is Bertolt. And if you watched my reaction video, you heard me cheering for Bertolt's death. And when I watched it back, I was embarrassed about that. Because Bertolt is begging for help, he's begging for his life, and I'm cheering for the chomp. I said something like, chew him up to the bone, get all that spinal fluid. And how many times myself have I said that this show doesn't let you take joy in violence, and I'm here pumping my fist like the world's biggest hypocrite. And when the tables were turned and Bertolt was killing Armin, Bertolt took no joy in it. He was apologetic and respectful, but he had a job to do. But something else I've said about this show is that it'll get me to pump my fist and hoot with joy during the action, but then later it makes me pay for it. And I think this show will do so here as well, because I think we have more to learn about Bertolt. And as we learn more about how and why he found himself in this situation, the more empathy I'll have for the character, and the more I'm going to regret celebrating his death the way I did. But Armin is my favorite character, and I gotta tell you right now, I'd kill all those other chuckleheads if it would bring him back. But I am curious what a Colossal Titan Armin's gonna look like. I hope I don't have to wait long to see it. Like, will he still have his hair? Will he have all the skin off the way that Bertolt did? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to seeing that creature design. And the body count's pretty high here. We got a lot of dead people, so I'm not entirely sure who's left. I mean, we saw Moblet die. That really hit Hanji hard. As far as I know, there might only be like the 6 or 7, 8 survivors that we see here at the end. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. And I hope Marlowe made it through. But I've got to say, this pair of episodes are beautiful, excellent construction. They really work like one long episode to me. Could I say that I liked one better than the other? I probably liked 18 a little bit better than 17, but I think the audience generally likes 17 better. But the truth is, they're like one long episode. I couldn't imagine one without the other. So I'm just incredibly impressed with the beautiful construction of this pair. And I want to say I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you again soon.
And I just want to give a big thanks to all the people who support the channel on Patreon. If you think you might be in a position to help out, please check the link down in the video description.